Alex, if you're there, man. Yeah. Some technical difficulties is true. Yes, that is what took place. Unfortunately, I guess the domination of the universe in these TikTok vertically framed shots have now become the standard, and I don't work in vertical. I prefer the horizontal layout, so I needed to figure out what's going on here. Hi everybody, my name is Jack Devine and welcome back to another episode of Office Hours. Today we're going to be talking about how to get a little broader sound to our guitar playing. All right, and there's plenty of people that understand how to approach playing over funk and blues from playing a minor perspective, right? So if we're talking about a song that has like a groove like this, today's groove in the key of C, brought to you by Little Old Moi. All right, so plenty of people would approach it like, yep, sorry about that, guys. Like that kind of thing. Okay, minor. And other people might think, oh, that's C7, and there's a little, there's that little major third in there, so that opens up the idea to play Mixolydian. So then they start thinking, all right, and that's all true. All of that, totally valid. What I'm here to do is share with you how to kind of commingle those ideas so that you're getting a more direct blend between the two of them and being able to think within the confines of, I guess, occupying two spaces in your mind harmonically, kind of commingling the concepts of blues that are going to be, connecting these kinds of ideas, kind of tougher, and this more modal approach. So, hey, Alex, is it coming through all right on your end? Like, is the blend between the voice and the guitars and this backing track right there sounding all right? I'm trying out a new device here, and I don't know whether or not I'm running a little hot. Sounds good? All right, good. Glad to hear it. So let's pick up where I left off. So we've kind of got as our bass sound this idea of playing out of C7. Oh, thank you very much. So we're doing this kind of out of a... So we're kind of mixing both the major sound that's present when we hear a C9, a C7, or a C9. When we hear like the funk chords, right? Or even a sharp 9. We still have a major third back there, right? That we have to contend with. So a lot of people, they just omit that and they go minor pentatonic over the whole thing. That is not a bad idea. That works and has worked forever, okay? To wit, like something like this. Right? However, that is also a little 70s and maybe a little retro. Maybe it sounds a little too mean or hostile for your ideas. And a lot of the guys that tune in and learn from me are interested in some of the more brighter sounds, but they don't want to sound kind of candy-ass. So the way they get away from playing the pure modal, like Mixo sound like this, is to kind of mix in some of the blues sounds. I did that intuitively at the end of my lines. I can't really not do that. All right. So let's talk about that, and let's take a look at what we're really up against. Yeah, right. Exactly. So that bluesy and dead shift that you're talking about, that's really kind of the crux of this issue here. Hang on a second. There's a little shit on my camera lens here. Hopefully, hey, look at that. I look 10 years older now. No, I'm kidding. So the idea is that we're going to be mixing these ideas. So we're going to be thinking that it's okay to kind of go into and out of these different sounds. We don't have to serve only one master as far as our ideas, right? We can actually, pardon me, I'm trying to move some stuff closer. So now you get to see the whole guitar, and hopefully you get to still hear me pretty uptight. Here we go, front. God, man, I'm no podcaster, I'll tell you that. Joe Rogan, you win, I lose. All right, here we go. Anyway, so here's the idea. We're going to be taking little ideas, little chunks of the Mixolydian, all right, sound. So that's going to be things like if we go like okay, that's very much in the scale. Right? That's very inside the scale, right? Nothing wrong with that. We could just live in there. But if we wanted to, we can kind of take some of this idea and get that in there too. Okay? So if we go like, right, starting from the flat 5, sliding up, bending up from 1, right? Okay, now you see how I'm kind of messing around with these 3 notes. That kind of thing, right? I'm bending in from 1. Let's try that. Okay, and we can definitely continue to explore the same ideas of mixing those flat 3s into our Mixolydian, the flat 5 into our Mixolydian. All we have to do is be determined to get out of it and assert one flavor or the other. We can kind of always be working within these 7 notes, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's our, oh, sorry, that's C. That's D rather, so I'm at a D. Sorry, so that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, root. Right, we can always live in there, right? We've got... that sound, or the hard one. Okay, and I think a modern player that really employs this technique very well is Rick from Goose. I think he's got that funky, bluesy, traditional sound of like playing lines that have like... at the same time as bringing in that more modal. Okay, so let's look again. We did this idea here. 1, 1 fret bends into the notes of the major, well, what would be the 5th mode of the F major scale. So, you know, the Mixolydian sound. So we can utilize that. That's kind of inside the Mixo sound. And then if we want to then break away, right? And add that little toughness. By adding the flat 5 and coming down chromatically from the 5, flat 5 and 4. Same place, the same notes, different places. So if we've got kind of going in 4s down this. So let's try that kind of idea. You can kind of hear me tackling a little bit of both of those things, and having that under your belt is a really great trick. It's a nice tool to not necessarily be beholden to one tonality. All right, and so a lot of students of mine, they have trouble kind of coming into and out of those two different headspaces. So again, let's think about ways of commingling an idea. Let's look at kind of a known Jackism, this idea of going. Okay, and let me share that with you again. Okay. So I'm using my middle finger to come back into the minor third and bend it up. And then I do it again. And then again. Okay, so I'm using that bluesy sound. And if I come up here, I can do the same motif, but utilize the Mixolydian sound of. See what I'm talking about? Is that registering with anybody? I kind of think that's it. So if we. Okay. Again, we could form another little sequence of ideas where we would say play into. Sitting on top of the world. I don't understand that. I mean, I happen to love that song. Especially the Doc Watson stuff, much more so than, I mean, the Dead's version is pretty hip, but. So that's me coming through the Mixolydian sound. And then adding some blues. Okay. Again, tracking backwards through the. It was in the spring. It was in the spring, one sunny day. My sweetheart left me, oh, she went away. But now she's gone, and I don't worry no more. I'm sitting on top of the world. So, yeah, great tune. If you check out my channel under, I'm not sure what section it's under, there's me kind of going through a pretty pretty straight ahead blues like that. I'm doing it, gosh, I can't remember what it's called. Let's find if I can. I wonder whether or not I can search within my own channel. Well, let's put it out. I'll try to leave a link to it in the description of this office hours if anybody's curious. It's basically a nice traditional sounding blues that utilizes a lot of flat thirds and sliding. I'm looking at a more funky kind of Fish or I guess the Goose type of thing, but this is a little bit more traditional than either of those bands. It's kind of more like almost more like a meters groove, this thing. So one of the things I want you to do is maybe you just start slow. Just start slow, and maybe not even on this like full octane sound. Maybe just dull it down a little bit in terms of the intensity of the output from your pickups. Get a little... So I'm kind of good bluesy, and then adding in some of those Mixo ideas. Right? It's like easier to hear those kinds of ideas, right? Just like funk, really, when you think about it. That's really all I'm thinking is just like... Again, it always seems to relate back. If you've been watching or hearing or studying with me, it's always about 16th notes. It's all about that little... Just think like a drummer. Think like a drummer, and you will be a better guitar player. It's psycho what happens when you stop thinking about notes and start thinking about rhythm, all right? And I don't mean... keeping it steady. That's presumed that you can do that. If you can't do that, we'll go back to go. Like it's time to rebuild how you approach music, because that's the essence of everything. Is whether it makes your hips shake, right? Whether or not it makes a girl want to somebody want to get with somebody. If we're going to be hyper liberal, which I kind of am in some ways. But anyway, the idea here is that we're going to be kind of looking at these simpler funk motifs, right? And then adding in either blues or a Mixo vibe to it. So if we were going... That's very much within the Mixolydian, right? But once you hear... Right, we're kind of starting to blend in some of that blues into that sound, right? So if you stick with the purely Mixo... I can't. See, I always add that flat 5 anyway. right? So why not you take your time and go through like five positions of the pentatonic minor, right? And look for the major that happens around there too. So let's do that. If we have that's our minor pentatonic played against our C7 sound, right? So we're going to want to locate our flat 5. So it's going to be or. Okay, and our flat 3. All right, so if we have blues. That sounds really nice, okay? Or we could have the straight mixo. Right? I mean, that's going to sound, we did, and being able to go into and out of those two colors, that's what I'm trying to drive at. Okay, so first of all, figure out whether or not you're already doing it. If you are, figure out what you're doing, because if you're not in control of that blend, right, well, then you're effectively out of control, right? The idea is to be able to control the color of your, and when I say color, I mean more shade, actually, like contrast, brightness and darkness. And I'm going to associate the bluesy sound with a darker sound, just because that's just historically how it's been framed, right? That flat 5 and flat 3, they sound kind of more sinister and, you know, a little bit stankier, right? And the other one sounds kind of more bright and chipper. Okay, so don't despair if you don't actually have the wherewithal to do that. The first thing to do in terms of acquiring that ability would be to just learn some scales, right? So if we're looking if we're looking at the C Mixolydian sound, it's pretty simple, right? It's just like a C major scale, except we're going to take the T, do re mi fa sol la ti. We're going to flatten that T. Do re mi fa sol la ti is flattened from here. See, we would never play that note over our jam here, not unless we wanted to create an awful lot of tension. We don't do that. Okay, and then we're going to be going. Mix some blues in there. All right, so that's the Mixolydian sound. If you don't have your blues together, well, then go back a couple of lessons. I think I was actually still in the key of C, and I was talking about finding your taking your minor pentatonics and adding flat 5s in there. I actually added a couple of extra colorful notes. The flat 3 went up to 3rd, and then I added in a chromatic run from flat 7 there. So, right. So utilizing some of those approach tones can help fill in the blanks if you kind of get ahead of yourself in terms of the rhythm or whatever. But knowing what you're up to here, and here, and here, and here. Finding your flat 5s. That's the key. Okay, so now hopefully in a very short amount of time I've just given you some examples. One that kind of cordoned off the Mixolydian sound. That's this thing. And the other with the blues sound with the flat 5. And the flat 3. And then so if we commingle this and this, we could think of it like the Mixolydian scale with a flatted third and a flatted fifth. So we would end up getting a master scale that kind of combines this idea. Wow. So lots of potential for chromaticism, right? If we combine all those ideas, we create this idea where we basically are able to hit the 1, the 2, the flat 3, the major third, the 4, the raised 4, flat 5, the 5, the 6, the flat 7, and the root. That's what I'm getting at, is by commingling these two scales, you create a much broader stage for you to work on as a soloist. Now, again, you may appreciate one sound over the other, but not knowing how to take the salt water over here and the fresh water over here and turn it into the brackish water in between those two things. Well, I mean, you ask any marine biologist, freshwater ecosystems are fascinating, and so are saltwater ecosystems. But when they mix together, you get things that are even kind of funkier and more wackadoo. So, hey, why not be aware of all the ecosystems that exist on your instrument? Okay, die hard approach towards the Mixolydian will yield a sound that you're very familiar with and probably very content to do. I'm not quite sure what that last word means. Eurolean, what was that? I'm not quite sure. I'm generally speaking, I think pretty hard to outword. Outward. There we go. I think it's pretty impressive to bump into a word I've never seen. What does that mean? You are. Fuck you, man. That's awesome. I mean, that's a New York fuck you. That means like awesome, I guess. Not like real world fuck you, in case you're. Don't take me at face value. You know, I hope you know by now that I'm well intended. All right. So the idea is, yes, I want you to be able to kind of be equally at home in either melodic or harmonic setting, okay? But you need to be aware. It's not like I can just do anything. No, you have to understand that even within that now expanded landscape, there are some rules, okay? With very few exceptions. I'll walk you through a couple of them just so we know. When we're employing the mixing of the blues and the mixo, the third is where things get specific. How much would I characterize Franklin's Tower riff? Yeah. I mean, okay. Franklin's. First of all, I think there's quite a wealth of my opinions on the Franklin's Tower topic. But if we're going to diverge for a second from the path that I'm on, I'm happy to discuss Franklin's maybe after we wrap this up. So hang in there, because I think we're getting to the end of this, and then we can do like more of a Q&A thing. Can you hang in there with me, buddy? Let me just explain this idea about like the rules pertaining to the third. Okay. So if we're looking at commingling the blues idea and the mixo ideas, right? What we have to do is figure out how to approach the third. Now the third can be approached from above. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the flexibility here. So we can approach the third from above, from the fourth degree. We can do, I wouldn't do those. I would maybe go, or, right? But I wouldn't usually come from I wouldn't start my lines here. Yeah, file on the bio, yeah. So we're thinking about coming to this third here. That works fine. But if we bring in that flat 5, I usually approach up into the major third from below. Not, I mean, that can be good at the end of a tune, right? We could do, right? We could do that. All right. And then, that kind of thing. We can get a little. Okay. So usually coming up into the third from below or one fret or, okay, but not, and I definitely don't do this. I don't ever go flat 3 minor third root. I can think of 2 examples where that happens. One is, and they're both were brought to my attention by Trey Anastasio's playing. One is he starts out, I think the backwards down the number line solo that I transcribed, fucking epic jam. Okay, he's like, what was it? Right, he does that instead of, which is way more inside. I'm just a more inside cat than somebody like Trey, who's really an impressive dude. But you know, I don't agree with every choice he makes. When I've gone granular on his playing, I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's got to be some like thing where he's either just like, I'm in the moment, fuck off, or he hears something that's in there that I can't understand just yet. I wouldn't put it past me to be, and I am in a different league than that man. He's a true master, even though I haven't chosen to really align myself with his philosophies as steadfastly as some of my other influences. He's truly an amazing cat. So that's one, right? He was like a... like a nice little jam at the end there, and he goes... I would have never done that. I would have gone... Okay, flat 3, 2, 1 would have been me. He's major third, flat 3. Okay. The other example of it, I can show you over top of this for some giggles. Here we would be like, if we go major third to the minor third, and then that's probably it, right? That 2001 theme. Then the second time through it, they do this. Flat 3 up to major third, which is way more inside. Right? And then the last one is the one where they go up to, right? Okay, so sorry, I was a little flat there on the high E. So the idea of using the flat third to approach the major third, very, very typical. This is definitely much kinkier. Okay, so that's the only example I can think of using that in that capacity existed within that 2001 jam. Okay, all right. So if we're going to keep going and talking about this third, all right, on the way up to the 5 or the 1 or the 6, on our way up, we can come from 1 fret below. But what we can't do is go down. I never do that. I go definitely or right, or you see, so on my way up. So always the flat 3 is either preceded by this, or comes into that or into that. But I rarely go. I would never like that unless I was coming all the way down, like that kind of thing, like the opening to Alligator. Right. So very rarely am I coming down through the third. Okay, I'll come up more often. Okay, that's definitely happening a lot. So back to our C groove here. I kind of kicked minor there and then into major. And that's really what I'm thinking about most of the time, is mixing blues and Mixolydian, or you know, that kind of thing. I don't want to hear the word Mixodorian come out of anybody's mouth. That is just a ridiculous way of thinking about things. That's not what I'm doing at all. And I scoff at that idea. So all we're doing is mixing major and minor pentatonic, basically. Okay. But nobody seems to want to break it down like this within the Dead universe. And so because I kind of shapeshift between playing hard rock music and hippie jam stuff, we can talk about that, you know. So, oh, by the way, a crafty way of humming up through the Mixolydian scale, utilizing these 3-note structures like this. Right? Those are all 3-note per strings, right? We can go, okay, so that's down, up, slide, down, up, slide, down, up. So over top of the jam. Okay, basically just some sassy, funky blues stuff peppered in on top of your Mixo. Okay, start one little riffy lick at a time. Now, Mike, you were asking about Franklin's and how that relates to utilizing Mixolydian. Let's examine that idea. All right, and first and foremost, let me ditch this. High gain sound. Okay, we'll get rid of some of that. Still a little too aggro. So, yeah, we can do it from here, I guess. Whoops, sorry. One more. There it is. Okay. So let's say we're talking about Franklin's. You were asking, right, Mike? Well, let's take it down a notch in terms of tempo. Let's not complicate matters by making an idea have to be understood rapidly, right? A lot of the problems that players have is they're unwilling to play the song that they're interested in studying at half speed. If you play an idea at half speed, you literally have you're making it twice as easy for you to understand what's happening. And once your body and your mind and your ears and your hands and your eyes, everything acclimate to actually successfully executing the mission of making a successful guitar solo at half speed, it's so much easier, all right, to incorporate those ideas at tempo. But trying to catch that moving train on a fast-moving song is nearly impossible to go from zero to doing that properly. So I would caution anybody from getting too hung up on playing Franklin's Tower at full tempo. All right, so let's think about this. So if we're looking at like a, you know, kind of that. That kind of thing, right? Let's get rid of some of that boost. Okay, so that's that kind of more bobby sound. Let's ditch my C7 loop. Bye-bye loop, never to see you again. See how much I care about you, Mike? 3, 4. All right. Add a little overdrive, ditch that, and so I don't really think about it in the terms that you're inquiring. I don't really think too much like I don't really think about it from a straight Mixolydian sound. Okay, but you can obviously play it. It is in D major, which makes this the 5 chord, that the 4, and this is the 1. So we could, in effect, say, just play D major ideas. Right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not as inspired as I like to play. That isn't inspiring to me, just buzzing up and down the D major scale. What I do like to do is treat it more like, rather than thinking about going from chord to chord, like A, G, D. Rather than thinking about going a lot of dead guys might think, oh yeah, you play A Mixolydian, G. Yep, absolutely. Who isn't guilty of trying to do that, man? That's what I'm saying. Try it slow. Okay. So granted, of course, here I am trying to teach the song at full tempo. Okay. But that short-sighted bit of teaching aside, let's just look at what I don't want you to try doing. If you've got a song that's going A, G, G, D, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3. All right, that's really, now look how much less time we're spending on the G here. Right? Don't do that. Don't think about playing over that little pump there. Think about that more like, oh, that's just a little thing that happens before we get to the resolution. It's basically just 5, 5, 5, 5, 1, 1, 1, 1. If you can think like that, that's a good starting point, right? So let's do A, D, D, we don't really have to think in terms of the G chord particularly, but if we want to, there was this little bit I did at the end where I went, hit that G note a couple of times because it was just kind of low-hanging fruit. So if you get hung up on playing A, G, 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 D, G, 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 A, you're going to end up constipating your ideas as they funnel towards that G chord because it happens so fast that your brain isn't going to, and your hands can't make conversational decisions on the fly. You may be able to write it into a lick, all right, and then execute that lick on command like a scribe, being told what to do by way of the roadmap. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, some of my favorite players, whether it's Elliot Easton or David Gilmour or any of the cats that make the decision to tour with a band that has like a legacy act where people are expecting to hear an exact solo. Like if you were the guy in Foreigner, you wouldn't be able to play a different solo than the solo that's on a couple of tunes that they have, or whatever. Pick a classic rock song, you know, whether it's Comfortably Numb or Hotel California, right? There's plenty of bands that have made their bones playing the same idea over and over again. The Dead, they ain't dead. All right. So the idea is to be able to actually have a moment, like a spontaneous discussion based on your overall knowledge on a topic, and that topic is we're going to call Franklin's Tower. So let me get rid of some of this super snappy sound here. My suggestion is that you abandon the major scale over top of Franklin's, okay? So it took me a little while to get to the crux of my thing. First of all, I ditched the G chord. And second of all, let's examine the melody of Franklin's Tower, okay? Something like that, right? And what are we doing in there? No G notes. There's not a single G in the melody of the song. So don't really get hung up on it. Even if you want to, you could find on YouTube there those breakdowns where it's the rhythm tracks from the Blues for Allah session where Franklin's makes its debut appearance in recorded form, at least on an official release, right? And if you listen to the bass and drum stems that they were kind enough to release, you'll hear Phil doing his typical... He doesn't hit a G. He actually hits the fucking flat 5 of the G, creating this. It couldn't be more tense. All right. And that's what I love about Phil Lesh, is that he is just a determined iconoclast. No matter whether or not he's talking about, I'm sure he's just a contrarian dude. And he must have been it probably was difficult to work with somebody like that unless you had your brain opened vis-a-vis Owsley. Okay, so there's Phil basically not ever playing a G in that tune on the recorded. He's basically just going to the third of the 1 and then coming up into the root of the 4. Okay, and that's how people think about this song, is this is the 1, but in reality, we all know what's really happening is this is the 5, right? Going up into the finally resolving into the root, right? But we're in Grateful Dead world where we treat the 5 chord as if it's the root or the 1 chord, right? But it's not. It's actually at a D major. So I know that can throw people for a loop. It certainly threw me for a loop when I was learning this stuff. And it was like, how is this three chord song fucking baffling me? I can play Eruption. How come I can't play along to this, right? That's what I was thinking. And I got very, very, I guess, dispirited about that. And I thought, I got to figure this out. So my suggestion to you is simplify. Play A major pentatonic for a while. And then D major pentatonic. Well, I mean, I don't think I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying it does. I've yet to see the benefit. This is directed at Mike, who just posted "Mind blown, no G." That's not to say you can't. Okay, you can. I don't. Okay, so let's go back to. But you mean within the melody? Yeah, sure. No G, and there's no G to hit in that melody. So when you think about the way Garcia plays on the recorded album, right? You know, when he comes out of the... Comes up and goes... Right? And then we've got that... He's kind of playing bluesy. He's got that little watery phaser sound. Right? If he's hitting the G, it's just because he's going. But I mean, you'll note that even fucking kid, back when he was a younger man, right? Here he is. The first thing he does is he goes. I mean, that is so baller to go, oh yeah, we're playing from A to G down to F sharp is the third of the four, the one chord. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna put this right up your... So this kind of thing. The second I try thinking about the G, though, I just kind of do it as an afterthought. Right? If you focus in on hitting the G to line up with your dun 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 dun, crash and burn, baby. That's my findings. All right. So good luck with that. My approach, pertaining back to Mike's original question, his original sin of interrupting me while I was talking, shall be addressed in such a manner. Yes, you can totally play strict Mixolydian. Okay, lots of ease within that, okay? And then funny enough, I started utilizing some of those chromatic blues ideas that, are a little outside of the Garcia palette, but they still sound kind of tasty. Okay, I can't get past how compressed this stupid sound is, though. It's kind of snapping. I think it has to do with the new piece of hardware I was talking about. It has a little compression built into it. Anyway, it still kind of sounds charming, though. But my suggestion is that you think about your major pentatonic 6/9 arpeggios. All right, and anybody who's unfamiliar with that, there's a lesson on that. But here, we go 1, 3, 5, pivot, middle finger on the 6. Sorry. So you can see here 1, 3, 5, 6, 1, 2, middle finger again pivots to the 3rd, 5, root. 1 and 1, 2, 2, 2. Huh? Yeah, the 6 is better there. Still using some blue notes to get up into it, right? Stitch some of that reverb. Maybe this. Maybe brighter. So we've got those ideas that I was just sharing with you there. Right, over top of our jam, that would be like a... Getting in and out of our Franklin's jam. I mean, Franklin's is more challenging than a lot of people want to give it credit for. So if anybody's got any questions, comments, or desires to share, I'm an open book at the moment. I don't think anybody's looking for me out there in the real world. I've been kind of stuck in some heavy stuff lately, I got to say. It's been beautiful, but it's a real, oh, hey, that's me. What chords are you playing on the outro? To what? Oh, you mean the I'm sorry. This is directed at Bride Jam Gel. Is that what you want to be? What chords am I playing on the outro? Yeah, man. So you mean at the very end and the very beginning of the tune where it goes to the A thing, right? Okay, so the idea is that we're hearing a major second over top of our C chord. Okay, so it's A to like this kind of chord. Okay, but different people are playing different parts of it on the recording. So you've got Garcia pretty much is kind of going like, and then you'll hear him slide up. Which kind of creates that ambiguity, right? Or another way of playing that note is here. So you can play a straight C major chord, and somebody can play that 9. Sorry, it just sounds like kind of. Sorry, I keep hitting bad notes with my middle finger there. Oh, thank you very much. You're very welcome. So there's that second over top. So we can take that sound right there. That's what I usually play, that or this, which is a little bit more, modern sounding. This one works too. So basically we're omitting the third and just bringing it down the whole step. All right, you can still have the E in there. That sounds nice too. Okay, so if we were coming out of that thing at the very end of that kind of thing, what is that? Is that right? So that's it. Or you can omit the third in this octave. You can just kind of deaden the D string and go. I do that a lot. And I'm back to the major third being loud and proud. And that's the open E to the second fret. So there's their 5, 6, 1. Sorry. So you could do, you're going right, kind of bluesy at its core. That kind of thing. Now, the fact is you get some of those bobby moves, those. very tender song if you want it to be. You can really embrace some of those kind of more like that kind of. There isn't too much more to share about those 3 chords. So that's my take on that whole thing. Yes, tender, and partly about Hunter's kid. Is that right? I didn't know that this had anything to do with anything vaguely autobiographical. Like I said, pardon the poppy tone. It isn't really exactly where I'd be at. If I was doing that, I think I would probably go for. Let's see about this. This might be a little less snappy. And if we ditch the swooshy, that sounds nice. Okay, so that's so. Okay, so there's a pretty extensive and well-liked solo of mine over at Franklin's. If you're interested in going to the Grateful Dead section of my website rather than these office hour things, which are just the main reason why I do it is it's spontaneous and it's easy and I don't have to deal with editing. I am such a fucking lazy person. So I'd rather be generous than hardworking, so rather than like actually writing out a solo, figuring the whole thing out, and doing multiple takes of it and piecing it together lick by lick and spoon feeding you, sometimes it seems a little bit better to take the more umbrella of sharing the idea approach and then peppering you with a bunch of examples and stuff like that. My eyes is the baby looking at his mother. Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that the. Is there a website? When I say website, I mean my YouTube page, which is just chock block full of, dead based stuff. So there's a whole setting under the playlists on Grateful Dead stuff. Sorry about that, Black Math. No, I don't have a website, although I think one of these days I might, do what I can to actually create some more upscale educational materials for folks, and maybe creating my own little desert island of freaks where I can share what I'm thinking over top of maybe pre-recorded backing tracks, and offer a subscription where it's like a little bit more of a step up from this kind of thing, which is wonderful, but doesn't have I don't really have too much interaction with each of you. Though I do really appreciate the opportunity to meet folks like this just by putting myself out there, and taking a break from my life actually is kind of a great palate cleanser. I'm thinking about this idea or the song or whatever topic we're talking about, rather than the fact that I've got 2 kids that are dealing with stuff and my wife and all. So, that kind of thing. My Dead stuff is awesome. I could spend the rest of my life working on it. Well, that's pretty much what I did to get to the point where I could share it. Was everything I had amassed up into that point. I had to kind of, once I started teaching it, I actually had to figure out what I had done. And that was, frankly, I owe anybody who's ever taken a lesson from me a debt of gratitude for making me think about what I do or can do and why I do it and how it works. I've grown as a player probably more since I started teaching more regularly than I did when I was just sitting on my ass kind of woodshedding. So echo what Mike said. Thanks for so much for sharing. Well, like I said, dude, it's actually a ton of fun. And, obviously the idea is this is free. And all the content on my webpage, totally free, or not webpage, but you know what I mean? My YouTube channel, home splashy page. And really, I mean, this doesn't cost me anything. This is just me sitting down and doing this for an hour instead of something else for an hour. Which, my time's worth something, but I really do appreciate reaching out to community and giving back. And if anybody is inspired and wants to actually get into teaching, they'll understand what I'm talking about when that day comes for them, how meaningful it is to actually change if somebody cares about music and you teach them how it works, then you're kind of like, I don't know. It's one of the things that, it dawned on me that there was a lack of apprenticeship that occurs in our culture and a lack of line of sight within familial generational cohabitation, like in Europe, how the young couple will be living on the ground floor and their parents will live there and the grandparents will live in the basement of some apartment. There'll be like 4 generations of a family living there. Here in the States, we split everything up and it's kind of it lacks a little richness in the depth of, experience and who you can call upon. And similarly within the musical community, there isn't a great deal of people shepherding others through the maze that this thing can become very quickly. It's very daunting and it's very intimidating. Especially, the Deadhead community, they come off like they're going to actually be there for you, but that has not been my experience. Just sadly to say, there are some beautiful ideas at the core of the Grateful Dead community, but by and large, I don't see a tremendous amount of generosity and actual how do I say, love that's given out to the universe freely without any expectation of return. So I mean, I'm not a religious guy, but I do think I am doing something that's kind of vocational. So while I don't believe in like the Lord doing his work, like this isn't Jesus's calling, but at least to me, I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just saying like, I don't ground it in those terms. I think of this as just a way of paying back the musical big brothers and people that for one reason or another managed to materialize in front of me when I was in need. And I grabbed hold as best I could and tried to be respectful, but learn everything I could from them. So in this day and age where we have this idea of a portal to millions of people, billions of people, maybe potentially, why not take advantage of that? And karmically speaking, it just seems like a way to repay any and all debts that I have to my musical big brothers, so to speak. So with that said, I'm actually out of batteries. My whole rig, by the way, is a battery-powered iPad rig with held together with the chewing gum and the prayer. So I'm going to have to go for now. But I hope I've illuminated some of the room that you're in terms of how you approach your Franklins, but even more back to the original point of how to play over type, kind of a funky thing, but bringing in some of that major. Bringing in some of that sound on top of the blues. All right, don't be afraid of this. So that's blues over top of that major sound. Was it? There we go. Everybody, hey, this is me. I just want to say thanks, and I'll see you guys around. If you guys want to contact me for private lessons or any of that kind of jazz, that's totally cool. Happy to help on the more professional side of this whole thing, if you want to reach out to me, I'm jack_at hotmail.com. All right. And peace, love, kindness, happiness, appreciation, all that good shit. And really just play guitar and don't yell at anybody. It's the best thing I can say. All right. Take care.